Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome the star of this podcast. Yes, the master of disaster, Mr. Adrian A.C. Aiello.
I've just hit the record button. I'm here with my great friend Vince Lochisano and Richard Stockman.
So we're on air now, Adrian?
We are. We're on air for the first time ever.
How you going, guys?
So you've caught us in the middle of a passionate discussion amongst friends, and we thought we'd have a bit of fun with it and hit that little red button and see where it goes. So
That's right.
welcome to this, if you want to call it a podcast.
Adrian's brought to you by ProStar Entertainment. I'm also brought to you by ProStar Entertainment. And Richard's here on behalf of his wife.
So
Thanks to his wife.
we're going to continue our discussion, and hopefully you have a little listen.
You're allowed to have an opinion, so long as it's the same as ours.
Adrian, I don't reckon that I go by this philosophy, but what about the philosophy of if you can't beat them, join them? Like, if you want the best for your kids, wouldn't you say become a Labor voter and take handouts or whatever, or you never ever think about that?
Never think about that.
Okay, well, it's good.
It's piss week. It is piss week. Because all they're doing, how can you sit there and say that a state or a nation that is as much debt as they're putting us in and will put us into, how is that going to benefit my children?
No, but if they turn out to be those few, Vince, we said how many liberal or how many right-wing people are coming through, there's not many of us left in Victoria. Like if they become frustrated, they can't do anything to change things.
As long as we have leaders like Dan Andrews at the moment who continue to embarrass themselves and disgrace the people of Victoria, people like us, right, are going to keep coming out of the woodwork and get to a point where there's no other option but to voice your opinions, because we've been shut out for so long, but now there's too many people that have had enough, right, and they're sick and tired of what's going on here.
But let's talk what happened on Saturday.
And he turns the police on you.
Vic Market, the people voicing their opinions, what happened to them?
Yep, they got arrested.
Would you want your children to be in that position?
To get arrested?
No, just be in that position where you're voicing your opinion because you're frustrated with everything. I mean, what you're ingraining in your kids now, later on in life when they get older, they might get so frustrated, but they're fighting a system that's probably going to be worse in 10 years.
But if no one's there to fight, then we just surrender to...
That's the question. I'm not saying not to fight. I fight, you fight.
You're surrendering to a dictatorship, to a world of communism.
You are.
Like
you might as well.
Who wants that?
Yeah.
That's what happens. It's the second you give up, the second you give up hope, give up faith, and you say goodbye to all that, you're literally surrendering to these people.
All right. We're like, all right, you know that I'm president of the Liberal Party up north here at the Union, right? I've been spending a lot of time on text messages this week about a member saying Liberals are piss weak. One of my members, right? Liberals are piss weak. I'm going to quit the party. I'm leaving the party. I'm writing that you are Liberal. What are you talking about, piss weak? I said, well, like, he doesn't do anything, but he's calling everyone piss weak. He's a member, but now he's going to quit membership because he says Liberals are piss weak. Well, who's going to stand up? Like, who wants to put themselves on the line, Vince? That's the thing.
Well, there was a saying that I saw on social media, and I'm trying to find it right now.
Vince, you're a bit quiet. Can you talk a bit louder?
He's working.
I'm trying to find it, if I can find it. But it was something along the lines of, you're better off to stand for something, right? Mm-hmm. You're better off to die standing for something than to die kneeling.
Perfect, yeah.
Okay?
I totally agree.
To what's being imposed on you that you don't agree with.
Yeah.
So there's got to be enough. There's got to be more people that are prepared to stand up for basic human rights.
But
we have had that many liberties and freedoms stolen from us in the last
6 months.
6 months under this totalitarian dictatorship, and that's all it is. People are coming up with the comparisons that have lived through it. People that lived in Poland, people that lived through World War II. Okay, these are the sorts of measures that those governments used to impose on their people: curfews, lockdowns, not being able to do or say what you want to do or say. This is not the Australia that we know. No. Is this the way we want our Australia to become?
I think the last straw is, we were talking about it before, to take away your basic human right to protest is that is us giving up, right? And that's him forcing us to give up by by not being able to protest against a government you have no faith in and disagree with, where does that leave us? We are, again, surrendering to a dictatorship.
See, what they're saying is that it's because of the health crisis that they are not allowing protests.
Correct.
now,
And this is where,
right?
because
if we get
thanks
together-
to his greenie mates,
Yeah.
right, who stepped in out of having a time of absence,
Yep.
who find it all of a sudden important enough to come out of the woodwork and cast their vote,
Yep.
right? We now have a man who is already gone rogue, who is already out of control,
Yep.
right?
Drunk on power.
Now has 6 months of extra power, right, to continue on his mission to totally destruct this state.
And you know what really riles me? People like Fiona Patten, who was one of the 3 people that the Labor Party needed to get this over the line, 20-19 in the upper house. She ended up siding with the Andrews government to extend the state of emergency powers for another 6 months. And then within a week, she's come out and said, I think they should get rid of the curfew. Well, you silly mole, should never have bloody well agreed to this without knowing in advance that they were going to put the
exactly right.
curfew off. If you don't agree with it, what, you didn't agree with it a week ago? Sorry, you agreed with the curfew a week ago and now all of a sudden you don't?
But she's
too late.
she's
It's far,
hedging her
far
bets
too
too,
late.
isn't she? She's
Well,
trying to win
she
both
makes me
sides.
sick.
which
Yeah, she's
is-
trying to win
People like
both
that
sides.
make me sick. And the other thing that's got to change is that parties like this Animal Justice Party, with barely a handful of votes because of all these preference deals that they do between each other in the Senate, to get themselves over the line, people like that should not be voted into the Senate on a handful of primary votes. Now, because of preference deals that are going left, right, and centre,
Well, they're all
of a
bought-
sudden they get into an upper house position in the Victorian
And
government,
they're bought by the Labor.
and they're all bought out. Yeah, and they they side with the left wing parties all the time.
talking about control of the Senate and control of local government, control of everywhere, all the grassroots stuff. It's just all it is control. And if cancer, just tell you this, if cancer had a tiny bit where you could actually catch it out there a little bit, would be locked up a long, long time ago. Trust me, and there'd be restrictions a long time ago on us if you could actually catch cancer.
It's the brainwashing that amazes me. And that people, and not even the brainwashing, that's always going to take place. It always has, right? You've got the higher ups that are always going to try and brainwash the people. It's the fact that we are so, not we, but people are so happy to sit there and be brainwashed
Yeah,
without taking it upon themselves to think otherwise. That is sad. That is so sad. And that is the one thing that I've realised since this crisis began
yep,
is the lack of effort to educate yourself.
yep.
B, the lack of effort amongst people,
Adrian,
of knowledge amongst people.
Can I venture to say that the majority of those people that you're talking about have been sucking off the teat of the government's
welfare
boob
payments.
for the most of their lives?
course.
Okay?
Of course.
So-
I would love to know how many of these people that sit there on a daily basis. Now, just for the record, you two know about my situation. Being in the events industry, I've had a business that I've worked like an absolute pig for years
Yep.
that has not taken $1 of revenue since December last year. Now, I've got a business now that has to start from scratch.
Yep.
I have in our industry, and there's a cry out from our industry because of this same situation where many of us employ people based on a contractual basis. So we don't have what you call employees on the books. Now, for that reason, we miss out on all the grants. My wife and I both rely on my business. We only get one JobKeeper payment because we are business participants, despite the fact that we both rely on my business. So my whole household income comes from my business that is now earning $0.
So are you classified as a sole trader in that respect?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So, or even as a director of a company, only one director can get a JobKeeper payment. Right. Now, all the grants, the Vic government grants, this $3 billion
not gonna touch
support
the sides.
package, we're not eligible.
But even
So
if you
this-
were,
this-
but even if you
this
were, it
office
wouldn't
next
touch
door
the sides
here,
of the amount of money that you
The bloke
have
next
lost.
door who's got less overheads than me, but because him and his wife are down as employees,
Yeah.
they get 2 JobKeeper payments. They've gotten there's another $30,000 in grants, that we've missed out on just because they're on the books as right. Now we've been dealing with the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and been in discussions with them to try and get things changed and get them to actually realise here in Victoria that there's differences amongst businesses, right? And there's other ways to sort out the hobbyists, which is what the idea is, so that they don't take advantage of the system. And there's ways to do that. GST registration of a minimum of 12 or 24 months, right? Just like they do when you apply for a bank loan. Right.
Well, I mean, Adrian, if you look at what you've contributed as a business, and that's what it is, and there's people that are hurting that have contributed a lot, but when it comes time to get back, they're getting less than, as you said, that example there.
Yep.
It's crazy, actually.
But what's upsetting is that there's people on a daily basis that publicly state how happy they are to go into lockdown and stay lockdown to the end of the year and, make sure that we're in a place of, zero cases and zero transmission.
It's la la land stuff.
I would love to know what their opinion would be if the government were tomorrow to turn off the tap and let them all live like I've had to live while my business is pouring out expenses.
And look, Vince and I know your business. Right. We know what you've put in, and we know that the great business it is.
There's
and not
people
just
hurting, but it's not just me. Right?
But your business has also done a lot for a lot of other people too, and you provided something that's essential in Melbourne, in Victoria, and even around Australia. No, you look at some of the gigs you've done in event spaces. I mean, you've actually contributed to society a lot. I'll give you a little example. One of my friends, one of my best friends, I don't want to say his name because he's one of my best friends, right? He lives in his mum's garage. He always has. His business has never really skyrocketed. I think he might turn over 300 a month. He's on JobKeeper.
Richard, can you please not talk about me like that?
He's on JobKeeper now, and same thing. He's laughing, absolutely laughing. He doesn't want it to end. So that's terrible when you've got a pandemic and some people don't want it to end.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And while we've got Vince here, as people are in our circle,
a lot of people on the dole before the
and they're getting double.
Now they're getting double.
Yeah. And Vince, while we've got
back
Vince
now.
here, in our circle, we know Vince works for myself and ProStar Entertainment. Now, he relies on although he's not down as an employee, right? It's contractual basis again.
Yep.
Now, my business being totally crushed, having no revenue, in turn, someone who relies on me for a full-time employment,
But Adrian looks like
in turn has no
he's still
income
getting well
whatsoever.
fed from somewhere.
Richard, just because you're on pittance money doesn't mean you eat very good quality food. McDonald's is the cheapest form of food you can eat. That's all I'll say.
It's Italian parents.
But it puts on the most weight.
Let me talk about my son, because this is a big one, all right? It was just before the Trump election. Then Trump got elected, and he mentioned something at school in Trump, quietly. And the teacher called him up and said, you ever say that
Let's
name?
just say one of the great American presidents and one of the greatest American presidents of all time.
Well, what happened then was the teacher said to him, don't ever mention that name in this classroom again, otherwise you're going to be expelled.
Well, see, there's not enough people that vote based on performance. A lot of people vote
Because
based on
people
personality.
People don't take
and
the
what
effort to
media
get involved
projects
enough.
about someone versus what they project about someone else.
Well, let's talk
People are
about...
too busy watching Big Brother
Yeah.
instead of watching something that actually affects your life.
Yeah.
So they'll look at Barack Obama, this
Probably the most useless one
so-called
they've-
beautiful black married man,
Yeah.
and that's the only reason, let's face
I'll
it,
tell
that
you
is the only reason why he got the votes.
The difference between Obama
The
and
most
Trump,
useless
Right.
president in American history.
they are poles apart, okay? Because, and this is one of the reasons why Obama was popular, because he looked the part. He sounded the part.
Had a beautiful wife.
Had a lovely voice when he spoke, and he knew how to project himself with public speaking, and he sounded very statesmanlike. Trump is warts and all. This is what I think. This is what I say. I'm not going to dress it up. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is the way I think. He is not a politician that crafts his words like a wordsmith.
Yep.
He just comes out and says what he thinks, and sometimes that's to his detriment.
Yeah, most times.
But you give me a choice between what Obama has so-called done or not done for 8 years, right, versus what Trump has achieved in 4 years. I'll take Trump any day.
And most Americans will.
And you know why? I'll tell you why. Because he does what he says he's going to do, and he follows right through with it, and he puts America an American industry and American jobs before anything else. And it's proven because when you look at the statistics, black unemployment, record lows.
Yep.
Unemployment figures, full stop, record lows before the virus hit. And that's not anyone's fault. There's one thing that the American mainstream media have tried to do before he was elected, after he was elected, and now that we're going up for re-election, is that they have tried to brainwash the American people yet again, right? The crap news network, what do they call them? CNN?
CNN, yep.
Okay, and all of those other NBCs and MSNBCs, all of them are the same. They're all pumped through left-wing causes. They only exist because of left-wing money, and they have been trying like crazy to get rid of Trump ever since he got elected. Yep. Ever since he even went up for nomination of the Republican Party, they wanted to discredit him like he was a joke. They had all sorts of, Hollywood stars coming out saying, you've got to be kidding, as if their opinion mattered to the real people of America. Give the real people of America credit. They saw through all that bullshit and they put him in.
You said that pandemic's no one's fault, right? When the pandemic first started, Trump...
China virus?
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, it's important to say that because, Scott Morrison came out and said we should do an independent inquiry into it. And what happened to him? He got canned for saying that. I think you've got to look at it. It's maybe not no one's fault. I mean, there should be a little independent inquiry into it, which there is. But
the bullies, the Chinese Communist Party, have since come out and they're offended at such a suggestion that we should have an inquiry into a virus that's destroyed economies all around the world because there's nothing to see here. Just because it came from our Wuhan lab, which it did, by the way, and just like we deliberately spread it everywhere, we sent it to the most vulnerable place in the world, Italy. Why? Massive elderly population. So it'll make it look like this thing's going to go right through your population and decimate it. So we'll scare the living crap out of everybody.
Out of the world.
Now, the problem is that when it went to Italy and then Spain, massive elderly populations, lots of people smoke like crazy in places like that. Okay, that's why it had such a massive immediate effect in those hospitals and they couldn't cope. So what did they do? They predicted 150,000 deaths in Australia. How many have we had?
Not even 1,000.
500 and something. I mean, is this a massive overreach or what?
780 or something.
There's a few more now since Dan the Man.
No, but the other thing is this. But hang on. With all of the lockdown laws that Dan the Man has put in, he's now had to try and justify all of that by having lots and lots of deaths. So what they've done now, and it's been confirmed by the Chief Health Officer, is that even if someone is already in palliative care with stage 4 cancer, if they happen to have caught the virus in the last days of their life, they're down as a coronavirus death.
There's many cases where they actually never had COVID-19.
So a lot of these, I think it's up to 770 odd deaths in Australia now. A lot of these deaths, they're not from coronavirus. They didn't die from the virus. They died with the virus. Correct. But they also had, in over 90% of cases, a comorbidity. They had some other health condition which has been the major cause of their death, not the coronavirus. In 99.9% of cases, right, people are not only not dying from it, they're getting over it with very, very mild symptoms. Half of them don't even know they've had it.
Well,
half of them don't even know that they've had it.
This has hit us all worldwide.
This is just
look at our media right here. How often do you see on our media here in Australia, in Melbourne? How often do you see about where it came from and what's happening about that? Us as business people, you don't want to. You want to unturn every stone and see what's happening.
Where are these other deaths though now? On a daily basis prior to COVID-19, there is deaths
aged care,
right? But there are deaths of all types. Right now, especially within the aged care sector, it seems the only death these days is of COVID-19.
Yeah, the flu went out the window.
Pneumonia, cardiac, the flu, bronchitis that kills these vulnerable every day. Now, all we're seeing is COVID statistic after COVID statistic, and it is scaring the life out of people for no.
But the mainstream media is the cause of this. And the main reason is because
the mainstream media is the cause for most of this.
Adrian, it's a very clever ploy. You talk about, quote, cases. All they ever do is talk about cases in their hundreds, okay? Now they're down to 40, 50 a day now. Yeah. Now, this is like 40 or 50 people a day catching the flu, right? Of which 99% of them.
The flu is actually quite.
Well, the flu, you get a lot
Quite
more
severe.
symptoms than what you do with coronavirus. Well, this particular coronavirus, COVID-19. So, but they talk about the cases. What they should have done from day one is forget the bloody cases. Hospitalisations is all that they should have talked about.
Yeah.
We have, in Australia right now, less than 20 people in intensive care.
Yep.
In Victoria alone, there's over 700 ICU beds made available for this, and that with less than 20 people in ICU, they have shut down the state.
Yep.
They have crucified business. And the other thing is this, they talk about how many deaths on a daily basis, right? Which more than 90% are aged people, aged care scenarios in aged care facilities. They don't talk about people who have suicided. They don't talk about, there was 285 people today that died from a heart attack, or 250 people that died from a stroke, or there were 485 people that died from cancer last week. Oh, no. Can't talk about all of the other causes of death around society.
That doesn't scare people.
Just COVID-19.
That doesn't scare people.
And this has given people like Daniel Andrews the license to shut everything down. And in my view, the reason he wants to shut it all down is because it's a deliberate agenda by the socialist left to destroy business and bring capitalism to its knees, at least in this state.
Yep, spot on.
And Palaszczuk's trying to do similar things in Queensland. And what's his name over in Perth also shut his entire state off from the rest of Australia like it's a separate country. That's the sad thing that's happened through this. Is that
What
all of a
about over
sudden
in New
these state
Zealand as well?
premiers have treated
No,
each of
don't
their
wanna go-
states like separate countries.
You don't want to go to New Zealand because
Don't
no. Well, the reason look, I see Kermit's gone off the screen, which is good. But
So if we want to talk about horse racing, we can talk about horse racing later.
I think Jacinda Ardern is a whole other episode.
I'll tell you one thing, mate. I'll tell you what, if she was in the last race at Flemington, she'd be winning by a nose.
no, but it's exactly like Obama. I think Jacinda Ardern is
She
also.
wouldn't get beaten the photo finish, let me tell you.
It's hard to say anything bad against her because you're going to look bad because they're that they're projected up there. I mean, she speaks well. She's like a nice person.
She's very
but,
clever on social media, Richard.
But she's very clever. But
She
look
knows
at
exactly
all
how
the
to
aesthetics.
manipulate. She
It's
knows
aesthetics.
exactly how to manipulate.
All the aesthetics.
Yep.
It's what people get sucked into. What they ought to look at is the report card. What have you promised? What have you delivered? What's the debt when you started? What's the debt when you finished?
And let's if we really want to talk about that, let's face it. There's a lot of people that are all of a sudden involved in politics and have their views and stand by Dan and all this bullshit that absolutely shits me.
Yep.
And they're the same people that had zero interest and zero knowledge of what actually went on in the world of politics and economics in Victoria prior to COVID-19. Because they see this moron rock up on a daily basis and do his
great
bullshit
leadership.
press conference,
Great leadership.
right? Now, it's that, exactly that is caused the biggest problem here. Not seeing through this shit. Now, prior to the election, when he was re-elected, we had the biggest issue on the agenda was the East-West link, right? Promised that it wouldn't cost Victorians a single cent.
Yep.
Vince, enlighten us.
$1.25 billion plus.
Now, for Victorians, they need to understand the length of time that it will cost us to reduce that debt.
Well,
right?
it's a little bit like the good old one that people have probably forgotten all about, the desalination plant.
Yeah, another one.
Do you know that costs Victoria over $1 million a day to keep open, and it's not being used?
Yep.
Do you know that they actually got it to produce 27 megalitre, whatever, how many megalitres of water, just so that it could be used, so that they could actually say,
But these are the things. These are the things that these
you never
people,
needed it in the first place.
But look at that east. We're talking about report cards. Look at the East-West link.
Yep.
Now let's say that was
Absolute nightmare.
Yeah, but let's say that was in place,
That was a
right?
desperately needed road.
Yeah, if that was in place, then those other feeders that come in, like the tunnel under the West Gate and now the North-East link, then if people want to get from A to B, you don't have to go right through the city. So it's still, you need the East-West link, and then the other two would have been more effective as well on the report card.
The
as
only
well.
reason why that was squashed and dismissed by him
Politics.
was because,
Votes.
of course, it was votes,
It's a suburb.
because it wasn't his initiative.
And it wasn't his idea.
Nothing that is a Dan Andrews idea or a Dan Andrews initiative ever matters.
And the way it gets flipped around and blamed, I mean, I remember Tony Abbott at the time was trying to work with Dan and trying to give Victoria some money, and he was just knocking it back. I mean, the way it gets flipped around.
But it's these things that Victorians need to know. Victorians need to know.
Narcissism at its worst.
There's too many people, and there are people that are happy and willing to find information, and they take interest in what goes on around them, and they know these things. But there are too many people amongst us that are happy to go day by day, not give a shit, have children, have grandchildren, make them suffer for them not giving a shit 20 years ago, which is what I'm not willing to do. And it's these issues that people need to know about, because I'll tell you what, it'll very, very soon change their mind about this bloke.
And I just want to say, for the record, out of us three guys here, for people who are listening right now, I'm the only Liberal Party member out of the three of us. All right, so you guys are concerned people for the communities, concerned people for business, and that's where it is. It's not. It's not a political thing here. We're not trying to get votes.
We're not trying to push any agendas.
No,
but I'm sick and tired of this bullshit that people just. I just can't believe that we're accustomed to just being manipulated so easy, and we're happy to just sit there and watch this, 6 o'clock dinner time news, and people just believe everything they hear, right? It's just like, I've got no words. It amazes me that we've come to this as a society that are just.
I've got to say to you that I think it's a real shame.
Absolutely pathetic.
That some of our best media commentators and journalists and opinion based are on pay TV with Sky News. Some of those people ought to be on free to air, but unfortunately, the channels of 7, 9, and 10, the commercial TV stations,
infiltrated by lefties,
together with the
ABC.
I mean, don't get me started on the ABC. They are all towards the left side, and there's no balance. If you really want balance, you'll get that Sky News coverage every day of your life so that you can have something else to think about, because they do present the opposite side. Not only the right side, they also have left-wing people in there too, but at least they're balanced in a lot of ways.
Well, you've got Sky News right here with Vince the Ace.
They leave with black eyes.
Look, that's what this podcast's all about too. We're just trying to get the truth out there, and it's like a Sky News, but on a smaller podcast.
See, these issues to do with the media.
I think the whole objective here is to just have people that may take the interest in listening. But
let's talk about something that no one wants to talk about, all right?
Yep.
And this is the police. No, the police, because people don't want to talk about the police, all right? Yeah. Do they? All right, let's talk about the police. Yesterday, the guy got his head. Did you see that?
No one wants to talk about sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. No one wants to talk about the police for the same reason that I want to talk about any other group of people that create sensitivity.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're too scared to be bloody bullied because of voicing something. Now, it doesn't mean, just before we start, it doesn't mean we're going to be here talking about how bad police are, and it's got nothing to do with that.
No, they've got a job to do.
Because I've got friends that are police officers, and they do a mighty job. I've got friends, family that are paramedics, and again, they do a mighty job.
Yep.
But let's not just think that just because you put on that uniform every day, that you are some hero and miraculous human being before you actually do the right thing.
Well, I agree. Look, I think, the police do a tough job. It must be hard. Being a policeman would be very, very hard in today's day and age. But look, no, Vince, have a look at this here. It's the system that lets them down. Now, for years, we've been talking about going harder on crime, right? Yep. Locking up the criminals, make the prisons bigger, lock up the criminals. That's going hard on crime. And we don't want criminals out here. But right now, when the power's on, did anyone see that YouTube video or the Facebook one of the guy getting his head back?
Yeah, I did.
You don't want to see that. He should, who knows that guy is? He might have a rap and everything else, and maybe he should be in jail.
He was on the ground with his face down on the ground. This is the one in Epping.
Yeah.
And a policeman literally put his foot on top of his head and crushed it. Okay?
Yeah. No,
That's no different to the George Floyd having his, having a policeman's
well, if that
knee
guy
on
died,
his neck.
that would be the
But
same.
my point is, it is unnecessary to be kicking someone in the head while he's down.
No one wants to see that.
And if we have our police doing that, they're abusing their power. I'm sorry.
No doubt. And that's what I'm saying. There are a lot of good police out there.
Yeah. Well, there is. All right. But they're put in a compromised position.
Yeah. Because they know that they've got the upper hand purely on authority alone.
On authority.
Well, no one wants to talk about the pregnant lady. What are your thoughts there?
There's another sad
It's
day.
disgusting. And this is what I'm saying. This is the sad part about all this. And it is if you don't think it's sad, because that's what it
Something
is.
wrong
There's
with
no
you.
other word. It's sad.
It's very
It is
sad.
fucking sad that we have lost our human right, our basic human right to oppose a government.
And,
Right?
and to
We are
express that
now
point of view.
forced
Yep.
into total agreement with the government, despite their actions, despite
Hang
what
on,
they
but hang on,
do
hang on, hang on.
or what they don't
Let's
do,
put this in
and how
perspective.
good or bad it is.
Let's
It's
see-
an absolute
Can we
disgrace.
put this in perspective? This woman simply put something up on Facebook. There was no protest held. It hadn't happened yet. There was no gathering of people. Plus, she did it in a town like Ballarat, which is not part of Melbourne's lockdown. They're on different restrictions, right? And I think they had 4 cases in the entire city of Ballarat and surrounds. Okay? So it's hardly a danger to society. But, I mean, for doing that, simply for putting up a post on Facebook to say, and I read that post, the first words on that post were peaceful protest
Yep.
at such and such an address in Ballarat. Now, if she's promoting a peaceful protest in a town of Ballarat and they're going to send in the heavies to knock down her front door and literally go and arrest her, right? Put the handcuffs on
In front of the kids.
in front of the kids.
In their pajamas.
Okay, she's pregnant as well. She's due to go for an ultrasound. That is a disgrace. And the
Absolutely, it's a
police
disgrace.
ought to be ashamed of themselves for doing something like
look
that.
at the what's come of
I'd
that.
like
all
to
right?
know who in police command
Yep.
who in
Authorise
police
that.
command is directing this sort of action. That's what I want to know.
But also,
is
Vince,
it that big fat bastard that went on TV the other day?
Yeah, that
Luke Cornelius. What
Cornelius.
a fat pig of a man that bloke is. He's disgusting. And to come out and call out people who want to protest against this government's lockdown laws.
He was pretty
right?
pathetic.
And talk them down like they're some piece of shit. Whereas the Black Lives Matter protest, we understand how
And this
people
is the
feel about
problem.
these things.
This is the problem.
The
The
inconsistency
only
makes me
reason why
sick.
these protests are getting bloody so much coverage and people getting arrested
Yep.
by the masses
Yep.
is because it opposes the government,
That's
Yeah.
right.
right?
But so what we need to do
Because
is,
it's dangerous.
well, we have to get a result. We have to look what led us to this, and we have to look what we can do now. So that's a very emotive one with the lady in the pajamas, the pregnant lady. What got us to that point? Now, what I think is that criminals, they should be in jail already. So let's say she's not a criminal. Is she a hardened criminal? She should be in jail, you know. Come on, there's plenty of criminals out there that should be in jail.
Pisses you off. Well, why aren't they going to chase the real criminals?
Yeah, that's what I
There are
think.
drug dealers and stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go down to that so-called safe injecting room in Richmond and you'll find half of the drug dealers down there.
Yep.
And by the way, the curfew doesn't apply to them. They're
No,
allowed to be out.
yeah, that's another
They're allowed to
issue.
be out and about after 8 o'clock.
That's another
doing their
issue.
drug deals around that in safe injecting room. Well, they want to put another one in now. And apparently that's what the Greens deal was. That's the whisper I've heard. Just keep an eye on this, will you, Richard? Let's see if there's a second safe injecting room that comes out and where it's positioned. It'll be right in the centre of Melbourne.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Vic Market, just across from Vic Market.
Well, I'm telling you, it'll be within the confines of the city of Melbourne, and that's the deal that I've heard that the Labor Party has struck up with the Greens in return for their support to extend the state of emergency by 6 months.
There's deals, Vince, go left, right,
know,
and centre, and
I know.
unfortunately,
They're the
this is
grubby deals that
this
these
is the world we live in.
politicians
You
do
know,
with each
you've got deals going left, right, and centre, and this
It's
is
like
the trouble.
what Julia Gillard did with Bob Brown, right? 2 days before the election,
Yeah.
there'll be no carbon tax under a government I lead. As soon as I need your vote, I'll give you your carbon tax, no problem. Just give me your vote, though, so that I can be the Prime Minister.
It's dirty stuff. Now, what does that say, Adrian? it's dirty stuff. What does that say, Vince?
It says, vote one Dick Stockman. Oh, sorry, Richard Stockman.
Blue Lake Water, if you live out that area. Now, this is pretty foul stuff. No, but look, we've got to go and chase the votes. We do. I'm struggling
Actually,
with my
the
campaign.
top line says, vote one Dick. Vote one Dick.
Look, I probably won't get in, all right?
Why
And
not?
I'm putting it because it's the machine you're up against. I lost by 20 votes last time, and I realised what a big. And I was independent last time. I wasn't a part of any party, but there was 8,000 people in that electorate. And I only lost by 20 votes, but the force against me, Vince, the Greens and Labor teamed up together. I tell you, it was something fierce, something that opened my eyes. That was 4 years ago. And council elections, very important, October 24th. there's 160
Grand
Labor.
final day, by the way.
Yeah,
Grand final we're not having in Melbourne
yeah,
for the
that's true.
first time ever.
Yeah, 160 Labor members that are in council, right? Yep. There's 60 Liberal members that are in council. They don't have much of a say because they're the minority. So there's heaps more Labor people, and there's a lot of independents that go under that Labor guys, and there's a lot of Greens in there that back up the Labor. So we've got no chance in that grassroots. Now, grassroots is so important. It's a budget Victoria-wide of over $11 billion that they control. So a lot of that money should be going roads, rates, all those things, though, little amenities that we all want. But a lot of that money goes into community groups, grants here and there. It all comes under control. And where does that control come? And so it starts there. It filters right through our whole society. And it's been happening for years.
Well, if you ask me, we're just so over-governed, it's a joke.
It is.
And if I had it my way, and if you could start all over again,
but we're allowing
you would
this
say
to happen.
forget the states.
The people of this country allow that to be the case because we rely on the government way too much.
We do.
Yeah,
The more we rely on the government, the more we want the government's help, the more we want the government's involvement.
It's a self-perpetuating scenario because politicians, in order to get voted in, start promising the world, knowing they will never deliver. But they promise. Oh, I'll do this for you. I'll do that. Oh, we'll get your money spent on this. We'll get your money spent on that. Oh, you want the local facility? Oh, well, you want to build a brand new leisure centre? Yeah. If I get in, I promise you, I'll get that. So they start overreaching, over-promising, and it's always someone else's money that's got to pay for it all. And that's just created this culture of debt and deficit that is just rife right through every layer of government, whether it's the local councils, state governments or federal governments. I mean, we are about to head up to the $1 trillion mark. That's $1,000 billion. Now, 1 billion is 1,000 million. So we're talking about 1,000 lots of 1,000 lots of $1 million. It's a shitload of money for 25 million people to have to pay back. And everyone's saying at the moment, oh, it doesn't matter. So what? It's a low interest rate environment. What a great time to be borrowing. You know, there's hardly any interest on that. Hardly any interest on it. Maybe today. But even if there was zero interest on it, Adrian, you do eventually have to pay the principal back. Even if you took out a home mortgage on your house, even if your interest rate was 0.25%, which might equate to nothing in interest, you've still got to pay back the original
let's not forget
But also, you're looking at the debt. Also, the money that we've got that's been spent, like selling or leasing the bay for 50 years for $15 billion. Where's that money gone?
That's a good point, Richard. But you see, this is what they're starting to do, and this is what Andrews has started to do in Victoria. He has done a deal to lease the Port of Melbourne for, what was it, 50 years?
Yeah,
right?
for about
For so
14
$billion,
billion.
Right?
Want to
Now,
take
that's
place.
in order to pay for his short-term promises. But we've lost control of the port and the revenue that comes from it. No one's going to pay that sort of money unless they get a return on that investment, are they?
No. And you know who it's sold to?
CCP.
Who did they sell the Port of Darwin to? And this is a sale, by the way. This is not a lease. They sold, the Port of Darwin.
Yeah.
To have even sold a piece of real estate to a Chinese Communist Party, whoever authorised that ought to be beheaded, in my opinion. But how we can allow these sorts of deals to happen is beyond my comprehension. But again, it's all that kick the can down the road stuff. It's someone else's problem down the track.
Well, we probably should wrap it up pretty soon, Adrian, because we'll have nothing to talk about next week.
I hope.
No, you can't say. No. But just before saying that, because a lot of the Chinese that have moved to escape communism, China, have moved to Melbourne and here. No,
a lot of Chinese people are lovely.
Yep.
Especially from Hong Kong.
No, that's true. I mean, who would want to live in a communist? I mean, that's what we fear in Victoria too. If the next state election, if Labor wins again, there's a
effectively
fear.
got a communist government.
Yeah, well, there's a fear. There's a lot of people going to leave Victoria, and that's and that's a problem. Yeah, but there is, and I've known a lot of people that are thinking of even after this pandemic, just trying to get up and leave Victoria because
there are a lot of people who have shut their businesses that actually want to go to other states and do it all there because they don't even want
He's
to try
crucifying
and start.
us. Under the Andrews
They don't even
government
want to
here,
try and start the business up again in Victoria.
Yeah.
Because they know what they're up against here.
he's crucifying business.
Small and medium.
And we love Victoria. We love Melbourne, don't we?
Oh,
Lived
absolutely.
here all my life. Of course I love it. But it's a shadow of what it used to be. It is now a sad state of affairs here. And you can't tell me that anyone
He's
who
a
looks at the
dangerous
situation now can say, oh, we're so proud of what Melbourne is today and what Victoria has become under this government over the last 6 years. You've got to
Well,
be kidding
Ace,
me.
on next week's show, isn't it? We're going to start talking about hotel quarantine. We better not get started now.
I'll tell you what. But he's, all in all, he's a dangerous. There's no other word for him. What he's doing to Victoria is dangerous, and it's dangerous for our children. It's dangerous for our grandchildren, and I've got children, and I hope that one day I've got grandchildren too, and they're going to be paying it back for a mighty long time, and it's that people need to understand the consequences of this. He announces a $3 billion package for business support
Someone's
yesterday.
gotta pay for it.
Right? Yeah, it's fantastic. I had someone on my Facebook feed say, all you Dan Andrews haters, I bet you're going to dip into that. It's not about the fact we've got to dip into it. It's about the fact that we're being forced into a position that we need to.
Where it's a lifeline.
Right? That it's a lifeline. We shouldn't be in the position in the first place that the government is pouring money out left, right and centre to support businesses that should be open. They should have been open a long time ago. Yep. This is people's livelihoods. This is people's homes that are getting lost amongst this bloody smouldering ruin.
And this
is a
good,
total
it's
disaster.
Good people too, Adrian. It's really
It's a disaster. You've got young families who live day by day on a normal in the best of times.
Yep.
And they're losing everything.
Oh, but hang on.
People that have an investment property.
Yep.
Right? Now stop thinking we're at the top end of town because we're not.
No.
Right? You work like a bloody dog to get an investment property, to rent it out so that someday your kids can use it to buy a home. Yep. Because in Melbourne especially, it's becoming bloody hard. Yep. Right? Next year and the years after that, the consequences are going to be astronomical. And they're going to come in the way of land tax in Victoria is going to be through the roof. Yep. Now, what does that do to people that have an investment property? Forces you to bloody sell it. Yep. Now, who comes in and bloody buys them?
All the cashed up politicians.
Right? That are the bloody real top end of town. Yeah. The hard-working small business owner who's labelled as the top end of town is only that way because he's worked a lifetime of bloody long hours and sacrifices, and he's employed more people than you can imagine and put Victorians in jobs. We are the people who have put Victorians
the engine room
in
of
jobs.
Society.
Actually, those investment properties get bought up by communist China. That's who's buying a lot of properties.
Of course, he's got to.
I would like to remind you. I would like to remind both of you and to all of our listeners out there that there is a large proportion of the workforce here in Victoria who has made a massive sacrifice during this period of time. They all work for the public service and they had to accept a mild pay rise of only 2 or 3%. Geez, you people must be doing it so tough, knowing that your jobs are guaranteed no matter how poor, no matter how pathetic, no matter how lazy and unproductive you are in your little jobs down there where you're shuffling papers, especially all of you people in the contact tracing department, the ones that use yellow sticky labels and fax machines to try and do contact tracing. Yeah, you people, you haven't had to experience not even 1 second of pain. And that's why Daniel Andrews has tripled the size of the public service because it buys votes. All these people will continue to vote Labor for all of their existence. Why? Because they depend on that particular government for their very existence. Because the threat of a Liberal national coalition coming in is that they will have to chop out some of these unnecessary jobs and some people will lose their jobs out.
Micromanaged, that's what we are. That's the exact word. We've been micromanaged by...
We are micromanaged.
But that's half of these jobs are just paper shuffling, unproductive rubbish. It's just to say that you've got a lower unemployment rate than what you really should
Let's
have.
not stray from the fact that these very wages in the public sector are funded by who?
The taxpayer.
the small business owner, the medium business
But
owner,
at the moment,
the
Adrian,
taxpayer.
Listen, a state government can only tax the people so much. And Andrews and his pathetic ministry have not only exhausted just about what they can tax everybody, they've now had to resort to borrowing to the tune of $50 billion since he was last elected less than 2 years ago. The debt was around $25 billion. Now it's up to $75 billion, and it's all done by putting Victoria on the bloody credit card for someone else to pay down the road. Probably your kids and mine.
Absolutely. And that's
Makes me sick.
And it's that lack
there's
of
no
understanding.
accountability for that sort of thing. See, to me, I don't care whether it's people might listen to this podcast and think these are just three right-wing, extreme right-wing stooges here. No. I don't care whether it's a Liberal or a Labor Party or who it is. What I want to see in government is real accountability. And the way it should be graded and the way governments should be scored, if you like, is based on what's the debt when you came in and what is the debt today. What was the unemployment rate when you got in? What's the unemployment rate today? What were the level of state taxes, stamp duty, payroll tax, land tax, all of these things that you tax the people on, what were they at the start? What are they today? These are the sorts of things that people should be judged on. Their performance, not how they look, not how they sound. We talked about the Donald Trump versus Barack Obama thing before. Not how they look and sound. It's what they do that they should be judged on. But too many morons out there are brainwashed by the media, brainwashed by party political advertising and promotion, and they don't look at the real basics of what they should be looking at to judge a particular premier or a particular government, whether it's state or whether it's even federal politics. They should be doing the same thing. All of these are how we should be grading and, if you like, measuring the performance of our governments. Yeah. And a government who fails, it should be independently looked at. And the people of Victoria, or if it's federally, Australia, should be given that report card to say, these are the facts before you vote.
Well said, Vince. And it's not just the three right wing. We've got Kermit here, but Kermit doesn't say much. We've turned him up for
Kermit's,
a second.
little
The
frog
greeny frog there.
the hidden token greenie.
No, somebody has to speak up, and we've given the reasons why as well. No, we are blocked a lot by media and social media. We know we do little posts here and there. We just get dominated by the left. So
it's those issues that we need to make a government accountable for, and remember them, good or bad. Remember the government for those issues, and not the socialist issues that they end up, people end up remembering them for, like who got the gay vote, right, and things like that, right? That is what they're remembered for, and it is pathetic that that's the case when the very issues that affect our livelihoods, everybody's livelihoods. These socialist issues aren't affecting everybody. Need to make that clear. That's affecting the minority. What affects everybody are those very issues: unemployment, right, and the economic status of this country and of this state. They are the reasons and the issues that we need to make the government accountable for.
Well, we'll do it all again next week. We're going to be talking about hotel quarantine and climate change. Where's that gone?
You want to talk about climate change?
No, we better
talk about climate change next week.
Next week.
Before we go, actually, I just want to, because as an Australian, this past week has upset me beyond belief in an emotional way. What's happened in Queensland?
Yep.
With those two absolute scumbags, heartless scumbags in the Premier and her CHO, Jeanette Young.
Pathetic.
Heartless, pathetic two bunch of politicians. Yep. I, as an Australian, I have to apologise, I think, on behalf of everybody, right? I can feel myself getting emotional here, but... What happened to that family
is a disgrace.
Is absolutely disgusting. And the fact that she came out during a time like that and played the victim
like she was
makes
being
me
bullied by the
sad
Prime Minister.
beyond belief.
That
makes me sad beyond belief.
And her deputy,
as an
by the way.
Australian,
Don't forget her deputy who came out and did the same thing yesterday.
As an
and had a go at
Australian,
the Prime Minister.
I am sorry to that family, and I'm sorry to every other family that is going through that up in Queensland, because it makes me ashamed to be Australian.
But if your name's Tom Hanks
right now,
or Danny Minogue,
and the fact
or you're
that-
anything to do with the AFL, no
and
problem.
the fact
Come
that
in.
Jeanette
Doors
Young
open. She even admitted
lacks
they
all
brought money into
lacks
the economy.
so much decency as a human being to publicly say just moments after that girl was denied attending her father's funeral, only moments after, comes out publicly and states that she offers exemptions to them because of the cash that they bring is disgusting.
It's colours.
And
True
that
colours
just-
come through there,
that
don't they, Andrew?
proves-
True colours.
The pathetic type of human being she is. Those two up in Queensland should be ashamed of themselves.
Well, I would say shame on Queenslanders who vote for Labor at the next election, which is only due in less than 2 months' time.
Yep.
Because if you're prepared to forgive that, you're prepared to let them do that to you and your family. That's what you're saying by voting Labor at the next election in Queensland. For
The mother that couldn't
Queenslanders are up
the
there.
mother that can't go see her dying son.
If you vote for Palaszczuk after that disgraceful performance last week, you're effectively saying, I don't mind if she does that to me and my family. Now, how would you feel if it was done to you? Then have a think about which way you're going to vote. Because that is a sort of the bottom of the barrel that you can get to in politics, surely. You see, saying that the others, in film and in sport can get in because of the money that they bring into the economy, even if they had a knockback the AFL, even if they had knocked back Tom Hanks, and if they knocked back Danny Minogue from coming in, to me, that's got nothing to do with this. She should have said it's a very reasonable request for a young woman to go and see her dying father. If she's come from ACT and they haven't even had a case there for 2 months, what logical reason could you come up with to knock her back? Surely you've got to make some exceptions under your so-called rules to allow for people like that. And there's now apparently other cases that are now coming
Many
out.
other cases.
There's a lot more.
Many other cases. And I just wanted to include that in our little, because as an Australian, I am appalled and I'm sorry to those families because it's very un-Australian, and as an Australian this week, I've been totally ashamed.
Well, good way to finish it there, Adrian. So how can people contact us or where we're going to go? Or
Well, we don't know yet.
For those of you who want to contact us at Victoria Police, our
be in the
addresses
cell.
are...
We're going to get a cell number yet.
they've made the prisons bigger by 3 people.
They haven't come and taken us yet. But just say, this was just actually... we're in the office today working, and
This program has been written and authorised by Daniel Andrews of the Labor Party Victoria.
we were just having a bit of a
Don't think
a chat amongst ourselves and thought we'd hit the record button. So for those that did actually take the time to listen, if there is anybody, maybe if
we'll be back next week,
we might be, might end up a show.
unless I've been arrested by then. Saying what I want to say. Don't forget to vote one Dick
vote one Dick
on
Richard.
the 24th of October.
Richard Stockman.
Blue Lake Ward,
Blue Lake Ward in the Shire of...
Nillumbik. Have we got a name for ourselves?
No, we haven't.
Have we got a name for this show?
We didn't. It
Three
wasn't even meant
Stooges?
to be. It was just a little.
Well, we should keep the frog in it.
Three
I reckon.
Stooges?
No, keep Kermit in there too, just to have that unbiased opinion.
as I said, what was a little.
What do you call 6 lawyers at the bottom of Sydney Harbour?
What's 6 lawyers at the bottom of the Sydney Harbour?
Bloody good start.
It was a bloody good start, actually. From what was an accidental show today. But thanks to Mr. Vince Lochisano,
Thank you
a
very
great
much.
friend of mine.
Thank you.
Richard Stockman of Stockman Wines, our token
Hey,
wine
where's
expert.
our bottle of wine, Richard? Where's the...
Oh no,
What we should do is actually
Business
drink
is
that
tough,
before the
Vince.
show, just so that it loosens us up a little bit, because we really have been quite reserved today.
Quite tense. I feel quite tense.
Yeah.
And myself, Mr. Adrian Aiello.
Yes, from Pro Star
If
Entertainment.
anyone did manage to listen, let us know what you think. I don't know where we're going to post this, but we'll find a way.
Oh, right.
can we put it on YouTube and then we can share it through social media?
Yeah, I'll get a channel and post that once we know the name.
Okay.
But if anyone actually did manage to listen, thank you, and let us know what you think, because we actually want to.
If I hear
This
knocks
was-
on my door at 3 o'clock in the morning,
There's Daniel
was,
Andrews, Bill Shorten.
This was a chat amongst 3 friends, and we thought we'd hit the record button because it got pretty funny at one stage. So
I think I'll come in with some music next week. Remember that song "On the Prowl" by Old 55? Remember that song, Richard?
No.
On the Prowl. No?
You do know
Never remember.
130
Oh, I'll
something.
probably remember it, but yeah, I don't know.
It's about a group of boys that go out at night and muck up, and then the police find them and catch them, and
It's going to be us tonight. Sleep with one eye open. But thank you again for anyone that did listen. Again, just hit us up in the comment feed and let us know what you think, good or bad.
Please make sure that you use colourful language. We don't like any.
We're not the Labor Party, so if you do have an opposing view, we're not going to shut you out.
Yep, we honour the First Amendment right to free speech.
And we can get guests on the program too, can't we? Maybe not.
If it takes off, absolutely.
We could.
Let's get some guests on.
Like we can ring out maybe sometimes, or
We
no?
can ring out. We can
Okay,
get them in.
excellent.
Eventually, I'd say we can get a guest.
Well, we can't get anyone from the Labor Party or the Greens. It's
Get them on. Get them on. We're not scared of a debate.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
We're not scared of a debate.
We can only let one on at a time because we want to outnumber them. 3 to 1's a good mix.
Well, thank you, and
Thanks.
we'll see you next time.
See you next week.